It's not that you're not going to experience stressful situations. You will. You're just going to be able to deal with them better on a conscious and subconscious level. Meditation really works to dive into that subconscious level so your nervous system isn't reacting so sensitively and so intensely to everyday stresses that exist all the time when you're moms.
Welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Hardy, a mom of two on a mission to help moms everywhere feel less alone. This is not a parenting podcast. Instead, it's a space for pushing back against societal expectations of perfection and embracing self-compassion in your motherhood journey. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. We have a special guest joining us today to talk about something that has come up quite often on this podcast, especially when we're talking about self-care, and that is yoga. A lot of the moms who are on this podcast who are sharing what they do for self-care, quite a few have shared that they really like having a yoga practice, and it's something that brings them a lot of joy, a lot of peace, so many things. But we haven't done an episode really diving into that. And so that is what we are going to do today. We're also going to be talking about some different things, mindfulness, navigating life and motherhood, all the things. So joining us today is Gabrielle Bosnic. She is a toddler mom, a certified yoga teacher, and the owner of Serene Moms LLC, which is an online yoga studio for moms. So Gabrielle, welcome to the podcast. Really excited to have you here and get into all the work that you're doing with yoga and supporting moms and just how your journey of motherhood has been along the way. So can you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. I'm so excited to be here on this podcast. I've been listening to this podcast for a while, well before I started this yoga studio. So this is like a dream of mine. I just feel like manifestations coming through right now. I am a toddler mom. My name's Gabby. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I also have an 11-year-old cat, which I have to mention because he's basically my kid as well. So I always include him. Like I have one human child and one cat child. So I am the owner of an online yoga studio, Serene Moms. I just started the studio a few months ago. It is an online yoga studio specifically made for moms by me, a mom. All of the classes are geared towards moms, unique needs, unique challenges. It also has a community component, which is really awesome. It's where all the members of the studio can get together in a private group, talk about all things motherhood, friendships, relationships, their kids, yoga, mindfulness, whatever is really on their mind. And it really is just such a supportive, sweet space. And it's something that I looked for in my motherhood experience when I was, going through postpartum and having my child. I was really looking for more support. And I think a lot of listeners who are existing in the US know that there isn't a lot of maternal care and support in America for moms. Unfortunately, I knew that logically when I had become a mom, but it didn't really hit emotionally until after the fact. And I struggled a lot with, where to find resources, where to find support, how to build my village, my toolkit. I just felt on an island by myself. And I always told myself, when I found whatever resources were out there, whatever would help me, I would make sure that I made those resources accessible to other moms. So that's really where Serene Moms came in, as just sort of what I needed at the time that I didn't have, and making it accessible for other people to be able to, find more support in their motherhood experience.
What I love so much about that kind of model is that I think for so many moms, there is like that seeking of community. And it's like, how do you do that? And it's like, well, join a yoga class, do this. But it's hard because that doesn't always necessarily translate into like the actual support you need when it comes to like sharing what's going on in motherhood and, building those kind of relationships. There's a lot of trial and error that can come with that. And so I think it's so cool that what you've created is a space that is so intentionally designed for building those connections, building that community, building those relationships so that it's yoga and it's all the benefits of that. It's all the benefits of doing something for yourself that is so wonderful, but it's also built into it this really beautiful community aspect.
Yeah, definitely. And it really came from a place for me. I needed the easy access because I was primarily a stay-at-home mom, and I still am. So when my husband's gone all day, I don't have a nanny. I don't have family that lives close to me. My in-laws do, but my physical family is actually like states away. So I didn't have a lot of like the babysitting at the last minute to go out to go to yoga class or like go to a mom group. I know some people have that. I didn't. So everything I was looking for needed to be at home. I needed to be able to be available when my child was napping, and then maybe I could go off and do a quick class online. But when I would search YouTube or I would search other options, it just felt very individualized, and that was lacking that piece where you could meet other moms who had those similar interests. And as my child got older, I would start taking her to reading times and groups. And that's been great, right? In terms of making mom friends. But you don't always make mom friends that share that same interest as you do with yoga and mindfulness. Like that's kind of a niche like community still in some ways. So being able to have that community center with Serene Moms and the accessibility of it being online, I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful multi-purpose just existence for that business. I think it's really special and it's something that we need a lot more of in this society for sure. I definitely want to get into some of the benefits of yoga and all of that. But before we do, I'm just curious if you can share with us a little bit about your entry into motherhood. What has motherhood been like for you?
Oh my gosh, that is a whole journey. Like I'm thinking like, how am I going to sum this up? Because it was just, everyone knows, like you don't know until you know, until you're in it, like just how vast it is and like how major sense and the whole experience. I mean, to really kind of give you context, I always knew I really wanted to be a mom. I had wanted to be a mom since I was a little girl. And I think a large part of that actually came from the fact that my mom was a single mom. So I didn't have a dad around. And I was always the kid growing up that only had one parent at every dance recital, only had one parent at every school function. And it was hard. It was sad for me and it hurt me a lot. So growing up, I always said to myself, well, when I'm older, I'm going to make sure I'm a super present mom, I'm a super present parent. I'm always around. That way, my future kid, whatever, will never feel the way I felt when I was younger, when I really didn't have that parent support. So that was something that really drove me to always want to be a mom. It really came from a lack of that experience with my own dad. And so I never expected the transition to motherhood to be hard. I think because I was like, well, I know how hard aspects of my childhood were with not having a dad. So what could be harder than that? You know what I mean? In my mind, I was like, I already got through the uphill battle. I'm good. Life is smooth sailing now. And my husband was like really excited to be a dad. We'd been talking about it for so long since like our third date. We talked about being parents and it's just really our biggest goal, honestly, like one of our biggest goals in life. So when motherhood came around and I got pregnant, I was really shocked by the experience because I wasn't expecting to have a lot of like mental health and physical health struggles along the way. I was a dancer. I was a ballerina before pregnancy. I actually went to like a pre-professional ballet academy and was in a company. So health and wellness was always in my life on a really advanced level, like more so than recreational. I wasn't expecting to have any real issues. And when I got pregnant, unfortunately, I developed Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an autoimmune disease, and not a lot of women really know about it, but basically you can develop it in pregnancy. Your hormones can change so drastically that you get a lifelong autoimmune disease. And that showed up for me with extreme fatigue, extreme weight gain, beyond normal pregnancy weight gain and beyond anything I had ever experienced. My skin was really poor. I just felt terrible all the time. I was so anxious, so depressed. It was just terrible for me. And thankfully, over time, I did get the Hashimoto's resolved in certain ways with medication and yoga and mindfulness. But the whole experience of having Hashimoto's and then, the postpartum anxiety and depression that came from that really was a struggle for me. And it was very unexpected. So when I became a mom, it was almost like shell shock because the romanticized version of motherhood that I had made in my head, like, oh, here's all these amazing things I'm going to do with my child. Here's all the ways I'm going to feel so fulfilled and healed from not having a dad in my life. It's going to be so awesome. They came around eventually, but it wasn't immediate. In the beginning, it was a lot of resolving, trauma yet again and dealing with anxiety and depression and learning how to navigate the hormones and the mental aspect of it, the weight gain, the weight loss, all the bodily changes. It really just hit me, like really hit me hard. And it took a long time, like almost the whole first year of my child's life, for me to really understand that I had to make a change and that I had to change my lifestyle to be more focused on holistic health and like healing myself inside, not just outside, but the inside too, to really start enjoying motherhood. And that was when, I did start loving being a mom. And now, yeah, of course, there's everyday stresses, but I love it, right? And I feel so healed. But it wasn't overnight and it wasn't this immediate romanticized awesome thing you see in the movies where you have the baby and it's just like, oh, I'm so happy, end of the fairy tale, It wasn't like that.
Yeah, it's funny. I have so many conversations with moms, obviously, on this podcast, and we talk a lot about that transition into motherhood. And I've never really thought of it that way of like, it's not just when you deal with those additional struggles, the physical health, the mental health, all of that, it's not just going from your baseline and like now things are harder. If we're not having conversations about how hard it can be, there's also this romanticized image of what it means to become a mom and what motherhood will look like, what it should look like. And then that fall of like, I'm struggling deeply with a lot of different things. It's not just like the additional struggle, but it's also like the loss of this vision that you had for yourself. And I do think in so many ways that is a product of us not supporting and preparing moms. Like you said, you can't know until you know, right? Like you don't know what it's going to be like until you're in it, but we just don't support moms in the ways that we need to be supporting moms. And so I think that story, while there's so many unique aspects to you, right? It's something that so many moms can relate to in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think social media has kind of contributed to the problem, and also it's helped in some ways too.
Yeah.
Having conversations like this is so helpful. But I remember seeing when I was pregnant and postpartum, and even when I was younger, all of these posts, they just glorifying motherhood, glorifying pregnancy, glorifying labor and delivery, what an amazing experience it was. And I really took those to heart. And I remember like looking at some of this content and thinking to myself, what's wrong with me that I don't have that experience? Like there has to be something internal with me that is wrong, because it looks like from the outside, there's all these women having these, you know, beautiful, wonderful pregnancies and beautiful, wonderful deliveries. And that's just not my situation. And it was easy to kind of blame yourself. So having these conversations and these podcasts and talks, it's so imperative for women to hear both the good and the bad, right? We can't isolate either, but having both is a necessity for moms, for sure.
I completely agree. I would love to know a little bit more about your healing journey in that, you know, coming out of that first year that was so hard. And did your business have anything to do with that? Like, what role did yoga and mindfulness play in that? Tell us everything.
So this is actually a really funny story. And I actually mentioned this. I was interviewed last night for Mom Magazine. It's like a really awesome publication for moms. I love it. And they interviewed me and asked a similar question about my journey. And I told them this hilarious story, which I swear I'll never forget. It all started on a vacation with my husband. At the time, I was still trying to dance after I had given birth. I was still trying to be involved in the ballet community recreationally at this point, but still pretty advanced level recreationally dancing. And it was really taking a toll on my mental and physical health. I think it was actually making my Hashimoto's worse because I was overkilling it and like working myself too hard. And so my husband had like looked at me one day and he was like, you are working yourself ragged. Like, we got to go on vacation. We got to do something. Like, you need to get out of the house, you know, get some time away. So my in-laws were like the best. Watched our daughter for, I think it was 3 or 4 nights. And we went on a vacation to Hilton Head, South Carolina. We are not from South Carolina. It was a totally random vacation. We've never even been there. And we just picked it because it was fairly close to where we live. So we get to the resort and, you know, we were just relaxing. It was nice. I felt like I could like breathe for a minute, got some time with my spouse, which was awesome because we hadn't really had that. This was around 7 months in. My daughter was around 7 months old. And there was this calendar at the resort of like activities. And at the time, you know, we never used to do activities at resorts before kids because we were never awake before noon. We were just like out having fun all night. So we never did stuff like that. But at this point, we were waking up really early, just naturally, because our bodies were used to it. Like, we couldn't shut it off. So we had woken up at like 8 a.m. one day, and there was this calendar that said, oh, free yoga class on the beach. And my husband has like never done yoga ever in his life at this time. And I had done yoga in the past through dance because it was a part of our curriculum in dance school to do yoga for flexibility and things like that. So I knew a little bit about how important it was, but never knew the importance of it from a mental health perspective. So my husband and I saw it and we were like, hey, this sounds kind of cool. We haven't done a workout yet, but we've been here. Like, why not? You know? And we show up at the beach and this yoga teacher, never met her, never seen her in my life, obviously, starts talking to us, tells us to put our mats down. You know, it's really peaceful, cute little area. There was maybe 3 or 4 other people in the class. And, you know, when they say like some things are fate, like that's really how I feel about this whole story, because we sat down and this woman starts telling us about how she was a prosecutor. And for context, I was in employee relations and I have a master's degree in like labor and employment. I was like deeply involved in this kind of field, like compliance-y for a long time that I worked really hard to get there before becoming a mom and becoming a stay-at-home mom. So I'm listening to this woman talk about how she was a prosecutor and how difficult and draining it was emotionally for her. And then when she became a mom, she had two kids and she got really sick with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And that totally changed her life and made her realize that she was doing too much and she needed to slow down. And that resulted in her leaving her job, becoming a stay-at-home mom, and becoming a yoga teacher. And I swear, my husband and I looked at each other and we were like, what? And so after class, I go to her and I'm like, I'm a mom. I have a 7-month-old. I'm really struggling. I found out I have Hashimoto's and I'm now a stay-at-home mom. I just left a really kind of difficult full-time job. And your story was just really inspiring. And she gave me a copy of this book. It was like about healing and meditation and yoga and how yoga and meditation can really heal your body from the inside out and how much it helped her when she was going through postpartum and when she was doing a major career change and being a stay-at-home mom and just in the throes of like young mom life and like toddler life, school life, whatever. So my husband and I were talking like, I don't know, maybe I'll read it. Like, why not? It was a really crazy coincidence. Like, I might as well read it. I read the book. And as I was reading it, I was like, part of me was like, there's no way that yoga and meditation could do all this for somebody. Like, come on, like this is crazy. But I started implementing what I had learned in the book. And over time, my whole perspective shifted. And I really did learn how to heal my body and my mind from the inside out through these fairly simple, like lifestyle changes, daily lifestyle changes. And this book and that class just changed my life. So I started going to an in-person hot yoga studio like 4 times a week. I started really prioritizing like yoga and mindfulness more so than ballet, more so than I had anything else. And over time, I learned how to really create my own yoga flows at home and make it more accessible again for me to be able to do every day when I was home with my daughter, and how to really kind of decipher what works for a mom specifically, and then build out eventually, right, this whole Serene Moms online yoga studio. So it really came from a place of me learning through my own negative experiences with Hashimoto's and, PPA and all this stuff, how to heal myself, which then just translated to, well, now I feel like I've got this like secret keys to success and I want to be able to show other moms it's actually not that intimidating and it's not that hard and you can do it too. I know because I did it myself.
I got like full body chills when you're telling that story because it is such just the way that it's all intertwined, right? The motherhood, the needing the self-care, the needing the healing, and then showing up in the right place at the right time where you are able to like take that message and, know that like this is something to explore and tap into. And then what that turns into is something that not only has transformed your life completely, but also become the way that you are now supporting other women, other moms in their own journeys of healing. And I think that's just really cool, really powerful. And yeah, definitely like one of those movie stories, right? It's like, there's no way you could let go of that one.
And it's crazy because actually I ended up reaching out to her after like months later, almost a year later, telling her that I was doing a yoga teacher training and like how much she had, changed my life and all this stuff. She was probably looking at my text like, who is this strange woman? But she messaged me and she's like, oh, I remember you, blah, blah. And when I told her the yoga teacher training I did with the studio that I did, she literally texted me back. She goes, that's the same studio that I got my certification from. So we literally went to the same studio, same program. I mean, I got chills too. I was like, what are the chances? And then she's telling me, yeah, I don't usually, teach at that resort. I just happened to that one day they had an opening. Like the things that had to align, the universe had to align for that to happen, for me to randomly be in South Carolina and for her to randomly take this class. Like, it's just crazy, right? Is it just me? I think it's crazy.
No, it's wild. The universe works in wild ways, and it really is such a beautiful story. Like, because you are now changing the lives of other moms, right? Like, it's so cool how we can have that impact when we're able to take what we learn for ourselves and transform that. And then to know like you were just in the right place at the right time and she was in the right place at the right time and all the things.
It really is so cool. And I love being able to watch now, the impact of Serene Moms on the members of the community and see how different yoga poses and mindfulness resources are impacting their life and their parenting, because parenting and motherhood is hard and you shouldn't feel like you have to do it alone with no community and no toolkit. But that's how a lot of women feel right now. And I felt that way too. So I get it.
I'd love to get into that a little bit of like how yoga practice, how mindfulness, how all of this does positively impact moms specifically.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing about yoga is that it can really work to rewire your brain into thinking more positively. So you'll notice it. If you start meditating even for 2 minutes a day for 30 days straight, you will start seeing the ways in which you think differently outside the context of meditation. When I first started meditating for the first few weeks, I was like, this is doing nothing. And also, I can't just sit here and not think about anything. This is weird. I feel like I'm wasting my time. But what happened was over time, I would meditate for a few weeks and then I would hear my daughter crying, right? And that used to just set off my anxiety triggers, set off my nervous system like, oh no, what's happening? We're all going to die. We all have to take care of this immediately. Like something's wrong. But after, steadily and consistently focusing on a meditation practice, even when as simple as 2 minutes a day, like that's not a lot of time, I noticed the way that my body subconsciously reacted to the crying and subconsciously reacted to the meltdowns, where it didn't feel as draining on me because my mind was in a place of more sense of calm. So I was able to handle it better and think to myself, okay, she's crying, but that's going to pass. That's a stage. She'll cry and then she won't cry. Like it's not the be all end all anymore. And I can handle it better. So really on a subconscious level, you work to rewire the way that you handle triggering events externally. I think a lot of people dislike the idea of yoga and mindfulness because in their head, they're like, well, there's nothing that you can do that can get rid of my external stressors. Those are going to exist every day, no matter what. So why would I listen to you? And I used to think that way too. I'd be like, well, you can't take away all these responsibilities I have. So like, how are you going to tell me I'm not going to be stressed? It's not that you're not going to experience stressful situations. You will. You're just going to be able to deal with them better on a conscious and subconscious level. And I think meditation really works to dive into that subconscious level. So your nervous system isn't reacting so sensitively and so intensely to everyday stresses that exist all the time when you're moms. On a conscious level, yoga and meditation works really well for moms because you can use simple tips to help deal with stressful situations when they come through. My favorite one that I always recommend is left nostril breathing. I literally do this all the time. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I don't know that I've ever learned what it is. So if you want to like share it with us, I would love that.
Yeah. So it's super cool and it's so accessible. That's why I love it. Basically, all you do is you take your right hand and you put your thumb over your right nostril like this, and then you just shut your mouth and you breathe in and out through your left nostril. Like you can do it, I'd say 6 times. And you can shut your eyes, you can keep your eyes open, you can do the standing, sitting. It doesn't have to be in a quiet space. If it is, great. If it's not, it's fine. And really what that does is it allows your central nervous system to relax and to go into that resting state. So despite whatever's happening in your external world, the external stimuli around you, your body is getting the cues to rest. And that does clear your mind. So I've been in situations where, for example, like my daughter's freaking out, saying no, crying because I gave her a banana the wrong way. In the past, I'd be like, oh my gosh, but now I'm like, all right, I remember I have this one thing I can do in 2 seconds. And I go in the hallway, I breathe through my left nostril and I feel better and my mind's a little clearer. And then I can go back to that situation and I can handle it more appropriately. Whereas in the past, when you don't have those tools and you're not familiar with using them often, it's really hard to not react instinctively in the moment in a kind of negative or like reactive way. So it's just training your brain with little tools that do help you. And then over time, all of the work that you've done becomes instinctual and subconscious. And you don't even realize you're doing it anymore. You're just going through the day naturally feeling calmer because you reset your nervous system. It's really cool, honestly.
There's something you said there about how, yes, you can't necessarily take all the stressful situations away. And I think that that's a really important conversation to have, right? I mean, that's such a huge part of this podcast is expressing the fact that it is hard and the world we live in is not created to make things easy. Like there's a lot of stressors, pressures from, finances to fitting everything into our 7 days a week. We have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you got to fit it all in. Like there's so much going on constantly for us and our kids. And so, yes, maybe working on those external factors and doing things to change that can be helpful, but we also can't escape it. And so we have to learn then how to manage our nervous system if we want to make any positive changes for navigating those stressors in a way that is more productive and less reactive and elevating. Because I know for me, that's something that has definitely been very true in my motherhood journey, that like when I'm not in a place of regulation, my reactions just elevate everything. And then it makes it so much more stressful. And my kids are stressed. We're all on edge. And it's like this spiral into chaos. And so if we can have those tools to like interject that cycle and make a change, that can be not just changing in that moment, but it changes then how everybody's able to like move forward from that.
Exactly. And I think that's especially true when you're a mom, because at least for me, my child will really mirror whatever reaction I have to anything. So if something stressful in our life happens and I am stressed, she's stressed. And what does a young toddler do when they're stressed? They cry. They melt down, they lose it. And then we're all 100 times more stressed because now she's stressed. So it really is this like reactionary chain. And the more that you can look at an external stress and have a more relaxed reaction to it, the better off everyone around you is going to be. And it's just a great tool to teach your kids, right? Like we can't help that maybe we didn't learn these things in our own childhoods, but we can give these tools to our kids. So when they're going through stress in their life, they know how to deal with it at an age that's probably a lot younger than when we learned, or at least when I learned, which is now. I feel like if I had these tools as a kid, it would have been a lot easier for me. And it's great for children to know. And you can teach kids simple breathing practices too. One thing I always mention is balloon breaths for little kids. If you have a little kid that's stressed or feeling like they're going to melt down, you can have them do balloon breaths. And it's basically just putting their arms in the air like this and inhaling and then exhaling, and they go really fast and they put their hands to the floor and they do it like 3 times. And it's just teaching them how to move with the breath, but in like a fun way. And it really does work if they're feeling overstimulated or stressed out. And it also reminds you to do your breathing too. So like when you're doing your left nostril breathing, for example, you can tell them, okay, balloon breath time. And then you're all doing your breathing exercises and you're all more calm. So it really works out.
It is cool how it's like these kind of physical hacks to our nervous system where like you can teach them without them understanding what's going on, and they can then take those skills into their life, and they don't have to be like a certain age to do a balloon breath, right? Like it works whether they understand what they're doing or not.
Yeah, totally. And oftentimes too, like when my daughter sees me do like left nostril breathing or like breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, she'll think it's hilarious and she'll start doing it. Like she's so intrigued by this. So when we're in a stressful situation, she kind of looks at me for my response and she sees me doing this funny little like left nostril breathing. She's now just like hilariously entertained by me and she's forgotten about the stress. She's just laughing and that makes me laugh. So I'm like, all right, we got this. It's all just about changing your mindset too. And these little hacks are a way to do that because perception is reality, right? If we're looking at our world and we're constantly stressed, that's going to be our reality. We're constantly stressed. But if we're looking at our world and we're able to subconsciously view it in a less reactive way, I feel we will be a calmer and happier society. And that's what I've learned through my experience. But it does start internally. And I know that that's hard for some people to hear because that means oftentimes a lot of work, like a lot of hard work, in therapy and talking and meditation and mindfulness. That stuff's hard. It's not an easy fix. It's a lot easier to go to the bar or take medicine or whatever. And those things aren't necessarily bad, but they're easier than working on your stuff inside and really like critiquing yourself and working through it. But once you do it, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important little piece to take with us. Something that I'm interested in, kind of moving from talking about yoga into how you've navigated this transition into having a yoga studio and being a mother, and how you've navigated, I guess, the maybe logistics of that, but also the identity piece of that. I think there's a lot of moms listening who, we're all moms, but we all have different things going on. So what's that been like for you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's again one of those questions of like, how do I answer this in a short period of time? Because I think it's ever evolving, right? I mean, becoming a mom, you're always becoming a mom, in my opinion. Like, it's not just a month or a year, whatever postpartum is. You're just always becoming a mom because your kid is always going through different stages. So you're always evolving as a mother. I think as an entrepreneur or a business owner, you're also always evolving too because your business is always growing and changing and adapting. So that's been really interesting because, the logistics of starting a business, it's a lot, right? You're filing for an LLC, you're building an Instagram following, you're building an email list, you're talking to clients, there's so much to it that you have to really think about. But I think the biggest thing for me is, it sounds silly, but again, taking it back to that like internal reaction and being able to handle my perception of it. Like, because there are times where it feels very overwhelming and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I possibly gonna, take my kid to reading time, put her down for a nap, clean the house, make dinner, message people on Instagram, like film the videos, like that's so much stuff, but you just have to control your perception of it too. Like I'll work a lot with time management and being able to make sure that I block out all of my tasks. Like that's something that I think is really important if you're trying to manage both, really intense work endeavor, like career change alongside being a mom, is find a schedule and like a block of time that really works for you to focus on one thing at a time. If I'm trying to like play with my kid while also answer emails, while also have dinner ready, like all three of those things are going to come out poorly. They're not going to be good. So I really have to make sure that I'm blocking out time for each specific task. In the morning before the nap, it's about my kid. It's about spending time with her, taking her to do something fun. That's our enjoyable time. During the nap, that's dinner. And then that's time to work on emails, work on whatever I need to do for my business. My husband gets home, that's our family time. When my daughter goes to bed, that's again my half-hour chunk of time to go back to the business stuff and get that business hat on. So it really is about time management, but it's also about not getting too overwhelmed, which is easier said than done because you have so much on your plate as a mom just generally, and then you're adding on a hectic like work or career aspiration, and it can feel like it's just too much to bear. And I think that's a lot of reason why women and, mom entrepreneurs and stuff will give up within the first year because they're like, I can't handle it. So you have to, from day one, really hold yourself accountable for your time management and hold yourself accountable for your mindset because it's going to be a lot. So the best way that you can organize your days and do that in a way that works for you and your family, keep up with it no matter what. Don't try to do everything all at once. It's not going to work out for you. And all of the things are going to come out poorly. So it's not worth it.
Yeah, the thing that's coming forward for me is how that kind of myth that moms are really good at multitasking. It's like, yeah, you might be able to multitask, but like we're also humans. And if you want to be giving your attention to something, that can only really go to one thing at a time. And so being very aware of that and then creating the systems, the schedule, the whatever it is to understand that if you want to be giving your full attention to your kid, then that has to be like a choice. And if you want to be giving your full attention to getting dinner done, that has to be a choice. And so it's a really important reminder. We can't do it all the time. Like,
no,
you got to get rid of that.
Yes, exactly. And I actually read a really good book on this. And the author talked about how, as moms, we can have it all, right? Like we were sold that idea as kids that we can have it all. You can do anything. And I do believe we can have it all, but we can't have it all at the same time. You know what I mean? Like we have to kind of exactly shed that idea that you can be the super mom or whatever. I hate that narrative, the super mom narrative, like throw it in the trash. No, shouldn't have to be a super mom. You should be able to block off concrete amounts of your time to be able to get done everything that's important to you. And all those things can exist, but you can't be doing 17 things at once. It's just not possible. And I think that that's a good segue into something that I would say as well for moms who are interested in having a different career path or changing roles or just having something outside of motherhood. I really think that it's important to look at the season of motherhood you're in. If I tried to start Serene Moms with a newborn or an infant, I would have failed because I wasn't in a place mentally, emotionally to do it. And I didn't have the time or resources that I needed to really have it evolve the way that it has. So if you are not in a place to go do that dream career right away, that's okay. It doesn't mean it's never going to be there. It doesn't mean you'll never have that dream. You just might not have it right now. Everything's a season. Everything's a journey. If you want to take the time to focus on parenting right now or whatever it is that you want to do, go do that. It doesn't mean that something is lost forever. It's okay to put things on the back burner every now and then. Like you're not a bad person or that dream hasn't died because of it. You can wait if you have to wait and you will still be successful. I promise.
It's so beautifully said, like literally bringing tears to my eyes because I think that is such a important takeaway, right? Like we can't look at it all as like failing because I can't fit it in all right now and whatever it is. There's a lot going on for all of us. And when you have like the capacity to do things, amazing. And when it's not the priority, that's also amazing when you can make that decision intentionally and just that permission to kind of let life flow more and know that there's no pressure to do everything right now is really important. And like that's something that I needed to hear right now for whatever, right? Like it's an important message. So thank you for saying that so eloquently.
No, I'm glad because I feel like we're sold this idea, especially in the US, right? Because I have a lot of moms from all over the world, and it's so interesting to hear how their maternity leave is structured and like just socioculturally, like how parenthood and motherhood is kind of viewed in different countries. Because in the US, I feel like, at least for me, I was kind of sold this idea like, well, you get 3 months, you can focus on parenting, and then after that, That's it. You got to get back involved in the world, got to do everything, got to be everything, have to manage it all, have to juggle it all at the same time. You have no other choice. And you can feel a lot of guilt if you can't manage all that, or if mentally or physically it's too much for you. And I felt a lot of guilt in the beginning because I had chosen to leave my full-time job because I felt like it wasn't my season. I couldn't do it. I didn't have the mental, physical capacity for it. I just could not handle it. And it's still something that a little bit, I think subconsciously I struggle with because I do have an advanced degree. And sometimes I look at it and I'm like, oh, Gabby, like, come on, you're such a failure. But then I remember exactly what I said, which is no, if I want to use that degree, it's there. If I want to go get that full-time corporate job, it'll be there. Everything's a season. If I want to do that in a year or 6 months or 10 years from now, I can do it. But right now, it's not the time, and that's okay. And one thing that's really cool about taking the time to recognize what you need and running with it, or sometimes even what you don't need. In that case, I didn't need a full-time job in that moment. And I understand there's privilege associated with that too, of course, right? But one thing that's cool about that is you kind of realize what is meant for you. Like when you go down that path, like had I stayed and run myself kind of ragged in this full-time job because I wanted to, and I wanted to prove to people that I could use my degree and I could juggle everything even when I felt like I couldn't, I never would have started Serene Moms. I never would have done it. It never would have happened. So taking myself away from that path because I didn't feel like it was intuitively just aligned for me in that moment in this season led me to this whole other path that I probably never would have even considered or thought about. And that is so beautiful to me when I think about that.
Yeah, as somebody who left a career in education with a master's degree that I got while I had a little kid and worked really hard for,
Yeah,
it all
you get it.
resonates so much. We could have a whole other conversation on it because
Yeah,
it is
no.
really beautiful to have that permission and that space to say, like, life is going to happen the way it's going to happen, and we can
Yeah.
change our mind at any time. We can come back to things, we can learn from things and not take them in the way we thought we were going to, but they do influence our life paths. I mean, this is a perfect example of that, right? Like everything that happened led to what you're doing now, and there's just a lot in there, and it's something that I don't know. I hope this is resonating with others as much as it's resonating with me. We are going to wrap up this conversation, but before we do, I have a question that I like to ask all moms at the end of the episodes about self-care. And I know we have talked a lot about caring for ourselves. Obviously, that's really like at the core of what you're doing with Serene Moms. But I would love to just kind of ask you more fully how you take care of yourself and if you have any advice for moms, just to make sure that they are caring for themselves regularly in the midst of it all.
Yeah, I have a few routines. I'm big on routines. It's just how I am. It's my personality type. I have like a very fiery personality type, like a pizza personality. So I just thrive on like structure, and I recognize that about myself. Everyone's different, obviously, but one way that I really try to, include self-care every day is by having both a morning routine and a nighttime routine. And this does not mean, I think when I say morning routine, people think you get up at like 4 a.m. or something. That's not me at all, like in any capacity. Basically, all I do is I spend 2 minutes meditating in my bed with Insight Timer. It's an app you can use to meditate. And then I do a quick journal entry again, right after I meditate in my bed. I get up, I do a very, very quick yoga flow. We're talking maybe 90 seconds, probably. It's just some cat cow poses to help with my hormone imbalances, and then a standing forward fold just to help my vagus nerve feel rested throughout the day. And that's it. That's all I do for the morning. It takes about 5 minutes total. And that really helps me because I know that no matter what comes of the day, I have those 5 minutes to just kind of like do my own thing. And it's really nice. And then for my nighttime routine, I do the exact same thing. And I'll journal about my day. I'll journal about the good things that happened, the things that were difficult for me. I'll do, and again, the same simple yoga flow, and I'll do a nighttime meditation. And I really look forward to it. I like starting my day with the same structure and then ending my day with the same structure. And I feel like it's nice with journaling too, because it's so quick. I just do it on my phone, but it allows me to kind of reflect what worked for me that day, what didn't work for me that day, and kind of what I enjoyed. It just puts me in a perspective where I can be more grateful for things, because I think if I don't have that piece of like journaling at the end of the day, I can kind of forget all the cool and happy things that happened. Like your brain is so quick to lose that. So I like to be able to have that moment. And I definitely suggest that too. I have a beginner yoga course at Serene Moms. That's just like a one-time payment that people can buy to learn more about yoga and mindfulness. And in the ebook that comes with that, I actually talk a lot about the psychological and neurological reasons why morning routines and nighttime routines are so important, and just quick ways that you can start developing one that works for you. So I think that that's a really cool way to get some self-care in very quickly and accessibly too.
Yeah, I love how easy those routines sound. Like it's just so quick, so not a lot of time, like
Yeah.
not a lot of mental energy. And you said something there about journaling on your phone, and I don't know why that's never occurred to me that you could just do that. Like you could just open your notes app
Yeah.
and write it down, and it doesn't have to be some huge production. Obviously, like there can be benefits to sitting down and giving yourself lots of space to like write and let it flow, but like it also can be beneficial just to like do a quick reflection. And even if that's on your phone app, you can get a lot out of that. And how easy, how accessible.
Yeah, exactly. That's really what, Serene Moms is all about. And kind of what I always talk about is this stuff. I think we all come at every activity we do, even subconsciously, with this perception of productivity. Like
Mhm.
it's not worth doing if I'm not going to sit down and really put my all into it and like journal for 20 minutes. And if it's not worth doing a yoga flow, if it's not going to be a half hour long. And, we have this mindset where things have to be productive on some way, even when they're meant to just be relaxing, right? So I always talk about morning routines and nighttime routines as they don't have to be this big production. You can just do it because you want to do it for 5 minutes or 3 minutes and then be done. And yeah, it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to spend money on it. You can just write it on your phone, write it on your laptop, write it on a note before you go to bed, whatever is easier for you. It's about you and what you want to do, not how productive and cool can I make this look.
Absolutely. Oh, there's been so many little great takeaways from this episode. Can you just let listeners know where they can find you and work with you, follow you, all that good stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I would say follow me on Instagram at Serene Moms. Send me a message. I love to hear from other moms, especially moms who listen to the podcast. So definitely follow me on Instagram. Whether you're interested in yoga and mindfulness or not, I'm happy to connect and chat with you and just learn more about what motherhood has been like for you so far. And if you are interested in joining the studio, again, you can check my Instagram. I have my website link. I have the membership for the all access on demand yoga classes, as well as entry into the Motherhood group, which again is a really awesome online support group for moms. You can meet all the other moms who are members of the studio. You can talk with me and we can all connect about motherhood, parenting, yoga, mindfulness, and just everyday life stuff, what it means to be a mom. So you get the yoga classes, you get the Motherhood group, and you get the ebook as a member. But add me on Instagram and we can talk more.
I love it. And we will have all of that linked in the show notes as well to make it super easy. So if you want to just click on a link and go to her Instagram, just go ahead and open the show notes, which is the episode description in the podcast app that you're listening to. And you can just easily find it there. So amazing. Such a beautiful conversation. So many things that I think I'm going to walk away with today that I really needed. And so I hope for anyone listening that there were some moments in there too for you that just struck a chord in a really good way. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. I love this. This was so fun. I want to like get lunch with you sometime or something. This has been so good.
I'm down. I think we're on the opposite sides of the country, but
Right?
make it work.
It'll be very expensive and timely, but
right.
we'll do it.
And thank you for tuning in. You are worthy, Mama.